Hello, good morning and or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. I'm Stephanie Puryear Helling, and welcome to another episode of the You Know You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview series. I am so thrilled to have my special guest and friend here today, Ronda Puryear. Are we related? We think so, because both of our families are from Virginia, so we call each other cousin or cuz. But before I jump into my interview with Ronda today, we're going to talk about leadership, leading change, and resiliency. I want to tell you a little bit about this incredible woman. Some of you may know her well, but for those of you who are new listeners who haven't had the benefit of meeting Ronda, let me tell you a little bit about this incredible woman. So, for more than 30 years, Ronda has served across the rental housing industry and has extensive experience in property management, marketing, and development. As the former president of residential management for Management Services Corporation, which has been in business for more than 50 years, she oversaw all multifamily operations in the company's portfolio. Ronda currently serves as president of Landmark Property Services, providing leadership for a wide range of communities to reach owners' financial goals. In addition, Ronda has been involved with the National Apartment Association for more than 12 years, having served as regional vice president, a member of the governance committee, and chair of both the student housing and apartmentalized committees. In 2020, Ronda served as the president of the National Apartment Association Education Institute, NAAEI. So Ronda and I served together. I'm also a past president of NAAEI, and it is a cause and mission that is near and dear to both of our hearts. Most notably, Ronda was the fourth woman to chair the NAA's board of directors and was installed at NAA's annual Assembly of Delegates held in Norfolk, Virginia in November of 2023. Ronda has also served 2 terms as Management Association. She's also a member of the Manufactured Housing Enterprises Board of Directors and the Blue Ridge Apartment Association Board of Directors, where she also served 2 years as chair. She currently serves as a member of the Virginia Property Management Advisory Board, where she was chair in 2019 and 2020. She is an active member of the Virginia Apartment Management Association and the National Apartment Association. So this woman has absolutely nothing going on in her life. I don't know why I'm interviewing her today. Just kidding. Ronda is an incredible woman, and I am so honored that she said yes when I asked her to be on the You Know You Deserve More podcast. Ronda, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me and joining us.
Good morning, Stephanie. It's great to be here with you. I'm excited. Everything's a few changes to what you said. I'm no longer on the Manufactured Housing Enterprises. I want to say that because if they're watching, they might say, wait, what happened? But yes, it's delightful to be here today. It's a beautiful day in Virginia, and I'm glad to join you. I think you're from Texas today.
I am in Texas, Austin, Texas today, but my home is Northern Virginia. So I love my Virginian friends. And thank you for correcting me, because what I did is I took your bio from LinkedIn, but then I also went and grabbed a couple other things from some articles that were written about you. So I appreciate that correction. All right, so let's jump in. And the first set of questions I have for you are about transformational leadership. And so obviously, with your experience and your various leadership roles, your leadership has inspired teams to push beyond their perceived limits. What personal philosophy or experience has shaped your ability to lead in this way?
Well, there are a lot of experiences that I've gained from the past, from mentors, from sponsors, from friends such as yourself, conversations and learning to be the best you can. I think that first and foremost, you need to set clear expectations that are attainable, but they're also a stretch. I think you need to be empathetic and understand the circumstances of each person. In property management, you always understand the circumstances of your property, but it's the individual people that you're working with, and what's going on in their lives and what are their experiences, so that you can help them be their best. So I think trying to inspire teams by helping them reach their goals and be their best, and also doing what you say. When you say you're going to be somewhere or do something or provide something or give them the tools, follow through with that, and then you'll earn the respect, which helps you to continue to inspire your teams.
I love that. And I really, I want to reiterate two things that you just said. So I loved what you said about getting to know them as individuals. I think that's huge, right? Because it's really that human connection and element that inspires people to really want to work harder for you, but you also know what motivates them. And what motivates people is very different depending on who they are and what makes them tick. So I love that. And also what you said about inspiring people to be the absolute best that they can be by giving them attainable goals, but also stretch goals. And I think that's fantastic too, right? Because there's always more that we can achieve. And sometimes we need that fire lit under us by our leaders, by both encouragement, but also pushing us to stretch a little bit further to reach that next level. So absolutely love that. All right. So my next question is about emotional intelligence. And I love that more people have been talking about emotional intelligence over the last 10 or 15 years versus just intelligence and experience. Because speaking of working with people, it's incredibly important that we tap into our emotional intelligence in order to be able to relate with one another. So when you think about emotional intelligence, how has emotional intelligence played a role in your success as a leader? And what advice would you give to aspiring leaders to strengthen this skill?
You know, it kind of goes back to what we just said. I think the most important piece of any job, one of the most important pieces, is emotional intelligence. You can have a great aptitude for a job. You can have great skills. You can have all of these degrees or not. You can learn how to do a job. Very few people can learn how to manage and lead people. I think you have to enjoy people. And again, we go back to what we just said. You have to know and be able to have emotional intelligence to understand that your whole team is inspired and driven by different goals. It may be that someone is inspired because they want more time to be with their family. It may be somebody's inspired because they want that promotion. But you have to have the emotional intelligence to be able to connect with them and even see cues that they don't verbalize to you, cues that you see by observing them and then talking to them and questioning them. You know, I feel like that, again, a true leader, the best leaders, have a high level of emotional intelligence. Now, how do you strengthen this skill? I think it's difficult. There are plenty of books that you can read. There are plenty of leadership coaches that you can have. And I personally have had a fabulous leadership coach throughout my career. And we have worked and talked about emotional intelligence, you know, for the last 15 years. I think it's a difficult skill to attain if you don't understand it. You have to believe in it and understand it, and then you can try. There are certain roadmaps that you can do to be better. Can you completely, someone that doesn't have a lot of EI, become someone who does? I'm not sure that I think that's possible.
Yeah, I do agree with you that you have to have a baseline, which starts with really having a true interest in people, number one, but also the ability as a leader to put others before yourself. And that requires us taking ego out of it, which can be hard for some people, particularly, you know, some in leadership positions. That's a very hard thing for them to do. And so they lead at a level of position, if you will, versus at a level of influence. And so, you know, I loved what you said about getting a coach, because obviously that's one of the things that I do, right? Leadership consulting and coaching. But I also have coaches myself. And my belief is that every leader and every coach needs a coach.
I agree with
Wrong
that.
one. I'm talking while I am trying to type this banner in. So give me just a second.
Well, I'd
Sorry.
also like to say something that you just said too. I think that a lot of leaders, a lot of people, they may not be very good leaders, but a lot of people think that as a leader, you have to have the best idea. You have to have the best product. I think the best leaders are people that give the opportunities to their people that they work with and people that they're growing and let them shine. And I keep telling people all the time that I am, grooming as managers and in different promotions, that if your team is growing and your team looks great, then you look great. You don't have to be the one to have the idea and to get the credit for it. So I think what you said is very true.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think where we get into trouble sometimes within organizations, regardless if it's multifamily or other organizations that I've worked with, is people are put into positions of leadership because they were a great star performer on their own, whether they, had incredible financial performance results or other operational excellence results that made them a star performer. Sometimes those people are promoted into leadership positions, but it's a very different skill set. Like you said, it's no longer about being the star performer yourself when you're a leader, but it's about letting others shine and grooming them and really building more leaders. And so sometimes because people are put into positions of leadership for the wrong reason, it doesn't work well, because not everybody is great at leading people. Now, can people be a better leader if they want to be? Absolutely. But again, it takes that mindset first. I want to be a leader, and then understanding, why does someone want to be a leader? Do they want to be a leader because of that position or title or more money or whatever the case may be? And then that's very much about them and ego. Or do they want to be a leader because they want to have a broader sphere of influence and ultimately make a difference? And those are two very different things. Yeah.
Very different. Right.
Love that. Okay. So my next question is about just, you've got this great history of experience in leadership at all different levels. And looking back in your career so far, can you share a moment when you recognized that your leadership had truly transformed a team or individual's career path?
Fortunately, I have worked with some amazing people who have mentored me, sponsored me, and then who I've had the benefit of mentoring and sponsoring other amazing people. When I see people that I've worked with, that I've trained, that I've managed, that I have mentored, and they, let's say, leave the company where we're working together and they move on. I've had several of them move on to open property management companies of their own. They will a lot of times give me credit for helping them in their early career, but there's nothing more satisfying than seeing someone that you've mentored become a competitor of yours, and a successful competitor. I always tell everybody there are plenty of apartments, there are plenty of management opportunities in our industry for every company. And I've had at least 3 people who have moved on that I have worked with that have moved up the ladder within our company, and now they are competitors. And that's a very satisfying, to me, satisfying outcome.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love seeing people shine, that I've either maybe was part in their hiring decision or I hired them directly. I trained, I coached, I mentored. Maybe they worked on one of my teams at some point. And there's a handful of people that I can think about right now that are just flourishing in their roles. And certainly the credit is not mine. I had one little part in being part of their success, or recognizing that talent, or nurturing that talent that they had. And sometimes it was building up their confidence, right? Sometimes
Absolutely.
it was helping them to learn a new skill set, or increase that. But I couldn't agree with you more. It's like the most rewarding thing. And then when you see someone years later and they're like, I still remember when, and thank you
I
so
know.
much for,
That's so great. I know. It's
yeah.
really good.
And I have those people, and we all do, in
Sure.
my life that, we don't talk certainly every day because our paths have gone different directions. But when I see them, I just have this great love and affinity for them because
Right.
they had a significant role in my leadership journey, right?
Absolutely.
And without
Absolutely.
them, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I do also think it's important for us to acknowledge those people that have made a difference in our life, right? So
Absolutely.
I want to talk about resiliency a little bit and building resilient teams. We've all been through so much change in the last 5 years with COVID and, quiet quitting and, resignations, and now the economy, really for the
Mhm.
last few years has kind of thrown us some curveballs. And so that's a lot of change that we've gone through and that our team members have gone through. So when you have been in these different leadership roles, both with NAA and the companies that you've led, how have you cultivated resilience within your teams during times of change? And what strategies have been most effective for you in keeping morale strong during these challenging times?
I think change is inevitable. And if you're not embracing change, the old adage is you're standing still. If you're not, change, you're moving forward, right? But I would caution, and I caution myself all the time. I recently, after I was with one company for 35 years, and a year ago, I was offered an opportunity that, I accepted. And so now I've taken on a new role with a different company after 35 years at one company. That's change, right? But in this new role as president of Landmark, there are some things that need to be changed. There's some great things that don't need to be changed. But I caution myself and any leader, don't try to change too much at one time. You can go in and you identify all these opportunities where you could tweak things, but people need to be comfortable with you and comfortable with your ideas, to embrace the things that you're trying to change. So I would caution in trying to change too much at one time. I also think that it is extremely important to explain why you're making a change. You listen to the objections, then you explain. If you maybe are going to go in a different direction, you listen to them, you try to understand their concerns about the change, let everyone be heard, then you can make the change. This all ties back to emotional intelligence, right? So if you include people in the change, if you help them, if you let them help you design the change, then they're going to embrace it more. And I think it's going to be more successful. So I would just say to be all inclusive with change rather than to, setting down a heavy hand and saying, this is what we're doing. And, without any concern about their thoughts or feelings. So that is what I've tried to emulate throughout my career. And I've, found works for me.
I love that. And so one of the areas that I focus on, with my clients and in my business, is helping leaders to lead change more effectively. And so many of
Mhm.
the things you just mentioned are exactly what we need to be doing, right? Because over 75% of change efforts fail in most organizations. And that's from research that Gallup has done. And those change efforts fail because of some of the reasons that you mentioned. They're not involving their team. They're changing too many things at once, or the change is going too quickly. It's not clearly articulated or communicated, and they're not giving people an opportunity to digest the change that's happening, right? And they're also not giving people an opportunity to weigh in. And I leverage the 5 dysfunctions of a team with Patrick Lencioni in some of my workshops with clients. And one of the things that Patrick says that I absolutely love is people don't buy in unless they weigh in, which is exactly what you were just talking about.
Yes. And I
Love
also
that.
think another important step in change is once there's a change, be open and say, if this doesn't work, we will adjust and do that. As I said before, do what you say you're going to do. And there have been many times when, I have implemented or our team has implemented a change and maybe some people were hesitant and it actually didn't work. And they may have been right. Be bold enough and to say, we made a mistake. We're going to tweak this and we're going to either go back to the way it was, if that's the case, or move forward in a different direction. I think that's an important piece of, again, having your team respect you and follow you and embrace changes in the future.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Love that.
Mhm.
Okay, so my next question. So leadership, obviously, it's not an easy job. It's a high calling, and you have to be a people person, tap into emotional intelligence, involve them in the change. It can be very rewarding, like we talked about, when you've coached or mentored or led someone who's had great success. But it can also be very challenging. And one of my business coaches says, every problem that I've ever had in business has a first name and a last name.
That's so true. That is so true.
So people can be rewarding, but it can also be our biggest challenge. So when you think about, leadership and the intense pressures that it comes with, how do you personally maintain your own resilience as a leader to prevent burnout?
Well, I I love what I do. And I have often said, people will say, when are you going to retire? When are you going to do this? And I said, it's hard for me to think about that because I love what I do so much. And as long as I do that, I started out when I first started my career many years ago, I said that, I was not going to work anywhere unless I really enjoyed it because I'm at work more than I'm with my family, who I love completely. So I also wanted to be sure that I love it, and I still do after all these years. But my philosophy, again, is not to work unless I enjoy the majority of the days that I am at work, which I do. I like to be around people that are positive and people that uplift me. That's not always the case, right? You hear a lot about, taking the people out of your life that bring you down and are very negative. Maybe you can do that in your personal life at work. Sometimes that's not possible. But I think working with those people and understanding that not every single person is in the right spot. I recently was talking to a friend who said that one of her coaches over the years said that you can be kind. It is better to be kind than nice. Kind is someone in a business profession that says to their employees, Rhonda, you're not very good at this particular role. I see your strengths in another area, and I would like to help you move into that area, rather than saying, oh, you're doing a great job and not meaning it at all. They were kind in the first situation. They were nice in the second. So it's better to be kind to your employees and to yourself. So I like to have that philosophy that helps me. And I love to spend time with family and friends. I think that recharges you, that centers you. And of course, I have church, I have my family, my friends, and I love to get my hands in the dirt and garden and grow flowers. So all of those things helps keep me from burning out. There are bad days, there are good days. And on those bad days, it's time to go, energize with somebody that brings positive energy to you.
I have so much to comment on there. First of all, so I loved what you said earlier about, everybody talks about surrounding yourself with the right people and then firing the negative people from your life. I do agree with that. Several of my business coaches talk about that. There's a book called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. And I got that book after participating in one of our Maxwell mentorship meetings. I do think that's important. However, you said we can't always easily do that at work. And I agree, unless you're in a toxic environment, and then maybe you've chosen the wrong environment. But when we're the leader at work, we can do things to change that environment. So if it's a toxic person on your team that you're leading, well, there's a coaching opportunity there, right? To work with them, or to maybe find them a role that is the right fit. To your point, not everybody is in the right role. And I think as leaders, we have to be really cognizant of that and pay attention to make sure that we do have the right people in the right roles, or they're not going to be fulfilled or engaged. And lastly, when you were talking about, what you do in your life to maintain resiliency, everybody talks about work-life balance. And as I've been doing some of these interviews, some people say, well, work-life balance is a farce. It doesn't exist. And I don't disagree with where they're coming from. I think the perception that you're always supposed to be maintaining perfect balance is something that's pretty unattainable, right? Because there are going to be days that are tough, like you mentioned. One of my business coaches says, as entrepreneurs, if you have 52 good days a year, you're doing really well. I hope my number is a lot higher than 50, but
I hope so too.
His point is, though, that business is supposed to be tough. It's not meant to be easy. And so having that mindset that it's going to come with challenges and preparing yourself mentally that you will have challenges. The goal is, how are you going to solve or overcome them? I do think helps with resiliency, because it resets your expectation. It's not supposed to be a walk in the park. It's work. That's why it's called work. But when you were talking about the different things that you do, I do think balance is important. And how we manage and maintain that for ourselves needs to be different depending on what's going on in our life, right? So if I have something major happening in one of my family members' lives, I may need to carve out some extra time during that season to really help them through what they're going through. It doesn't mean that I'm not focused on work and committed, but I may not be burning the midnight oil as often, right? Or I may have to.
A perfect example of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
No. I was just going to say, or I may have to say no to some of the events that I would love to go to, but maybe some of them are not must attend, but they're nice to attend, right? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say a perfect example of that is my youngest daughter had a baby 2 months ago, and my oldest daughter is due today. And we don't know, the baby's not here yet, but I have told everyone that I work with, I have a speaking engagement on Monday in Maryland. I've told everyone I work with that when the baby comes, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I will get in my car and I will go there. So everyone knows that's the priority. And, so you have to set boundaries sometimes for yourself too. It would be easy for me to say, oh gosh, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I'll be there when I can. But I know that that's not the priority. The priority is to be with my daughter and, to welcome my new grandchild. So yes, I agree. If I chose differently, I think burnout would come sooner because I would have guilt and regret for my choices. And I would blame that on work when in effect, it's my choice that I made,
Love that so much.
So yeah.
I love the conversation about boundaries. That could be like an entire,
I know it could be
an entire session of itself. I'm looking at my notes real quick. It'll come to me. I may not say it exactly right, but I was on one of my mentorship calls a few weeks ago, and one of my Maxwell leadership mentors was talking about balance and resiliency and boundaries, and when what you say yes to is important, but also what you say no to is incredibly important as well. And I think sometimes people learn, maybe because it was how they were raised, or possibly it's part of the culture of where they work, that you always have to say yes and be a yes person. But that's not true. You have to say yes to the right things and say no sometimes, because you can't be everywhere all at once. Exactly. And there's no one else responsible for you saying yes except for you. And there's also no one that's going to be maintaining the balance in your life except for you. So if you are burning the candle at both ends, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself, okay, number one, why am I doing this? Normally when I'm coaching people, they're like, because it's the expectation of this person and this person and this person and this person. I'm like, okay, sure. I agree. Those are real expectations, but you can't do it all because look at what's happening to you. So you need to learn how to determine what your priorities, and you also need to determine how you can realistically meet those expectations. Because guess what? If you say yes, you've basically said, yes, I can meet that expectation, but then you're driving yourself nuts and you're not able to do it. So you got to fix something here. And it's you, my friend. Yes, those are real demands, but it's really you, the one that's responsible for how you manage that. Yeah.
That was a very difficult lesson for me to learn because I always want to say yes. I don't like to let people down. And throughout my life, I've always said yes. And in the past, I would say it's taken me until about the past 5 years that I started saying no. And it was so liberating and freeing to be able to say no in a kind way and explaining to them why I said no, because I knew that I couldn't do my best job because I was too busy and I'd overextended. And it was so freeing and liberating. And it really helped me to learn how to say no and explain why.
Yeah, I think it's an important skill that I wish, some of the leadership coaching that I do with adults, I really wish more of this happened, with youth. Granted, we learn some things through experience and we learn some things through maturing, but I think if we gave our youth some more life skills, it would set them up for better success because many of us didn't learn that until later on, right? And I think particularly for women, which I do have a couple questions here for you just about women in leadership. But I think particularly for women also, it can be really difficult to say no because, and this is a generalized statement, so nobody get upset with me if you're listening to this right now or later. But generally, because we can all have challenges with this, men, women, whatever. But generally speaking, more women have a hard time saying no because of how they were raised, right? To say yes and be sweet and be a people pleaser and be a caretaker and take care of everybody. So it's almost ingrained in us that if we say no, we're doing something wrong or we're being bad or we're letting someone down or disappointing them. 100%. And the reality is, yeah, I may actually disappoint somebody if I have to tell them no. But to your point, we can do it in a gracious way and in a nice way. But it ends up being better for that person if we tell them no. Because if we can't meet the expectation, why are we saying yes to begin with?
Exactly.
Yeah. So love this conversation. It's the whole nother one. So I am interviewing Cindy Claire later today. And then I've also asked Alex to participate in a couple of weeks. And I'm so thankful that you all said yes. But at some point, just kind of thinking out loud, I may, invite you all back together, the three of you, to talk about women in leadership and some of these issues that tend to be larger challenges for women. So I'll let you know. And you can decide.
We spoke that we would love to do that if you wanted to. We spoke in Virginia last week. We're going to Maryland next week to speak. We've been really all over the country.
In Nashville, you went to the women's conference in Nashville with my friend.
We went to the women's conference in Orlando. And, it's so interesting because the response has been, and it's not us, it's the response from women has been so positive because we don't often talk about the challenges that women have because we think we're not supposed to have challenges because we should be just like men. And we're not just like men. And men are not like women. And that's great. That's a great thing, right? And there are different challenges and things that come with that. And women so often are, hide things behind. I mean, in the very beginning, I know that Alex talks about when she first started work many years ago, she got a blue suit because that's what the men wore, and so we've come a long way, but there are unique challenges that women have that we need to talk about and make women feel comfortable knowing that it's okay to have those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting with like the evolution of women's clothing, right? So
Yeah.
when I first started in multifamily, I was, well, the second company I ever worked for was JPI. And back then, pantsuits were like all the rage and it was new. But when I first started with them, women could not wear pants. You had to wear skirts and
Oh, yeah.
pantyhose, closed-toed shoes. This is
Oh,
the
yeah.
early 90s. Then we were thrilled when our dress code changed and women could wear pantsuits. That's pretty much all we wore. And if we had you know, a career apparel stipend, we would go get our uniforms at Ann Taylor down
Oh,
at the
yeah.
outlet.
Oh,
Loved
yeah.
pantsuits. And it was sort of a power thing. And also because we couldn't, and suddenly we could, now that's all we wanted to wear. But you see me all the time, and I'm all for women wearing what makes them comfortable, whether
Yes.
it's pantsuit, you want to wear the dark navy blue like a man, you want to wear a tie, whatever.
Yes.
But I mostly now wear dresses. I don't wear pantyhose unless it's the winter. But I mostly wear dresses just because that's what I like to wear. And I've embraced like more color and floral and things of that nature. And I don't think that makes me any less professional or any less capable to do my job as a woman, but I enjoy embracing my femininity in business.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right?
Right.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, I know you said yes now, but I will ask again. So you have some time to think about it. So you can say yes to things. But I would love to have you guys back on collectively because I think it would be a really powerful conversation. And particularly for the people who may not have had the benefit of being able to come see you in Nashville or, you know, Maryland or these other city, Orlando, where you've either been or where you're going, we can offer them something virtually to at least hear a little bit from you guys on this topic. Okay. So we talked a lot about your own resiliency and balance. And when you think about, you know, your team, how do you balance creating stability for your team while also embracing disruption as an opportunity for growth?
I think that the team needs to know that they're secure. If you let everyone know that, you know, you don't have to be feared. You don't have to have the fear of failure. You can embrace change. You can embrace disruption. You can bring ideas for disruption, and that is a positive, and it's received well. And I think a lot of that also comes with teaching them and mentoring them on how to do just that. Because whether it's men or women, as we just said that they're different, if you are a disruptor and you do it in a negative, aggressive, attacking way, or potentially you're disruptive and you attack a policy or a procedure that someone has created that you work with. It all depends on the delivery. And so I work with them to know that, you know, without disruption, we don't have growth. We need disruption. We need ideas. We need, you know, to move forward in the evolution of change with, you know, with AI, with everything that's happening. All that's very disruptive, right? However, you can look at it and take steps that are more aligned with your company's strategy. You can take steps that are more aligned with your internal and your personal strategy. So I think that really giving them a secure, safe space to be disruptive, and also letting them know that a disruption does not, it's not a challenge to them. It's an opportunity rather than a challenge. Nothing to fear, something to look at as, you know, an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, something you said, you know, if someone tends to be disruptive and they bring that feedback with a very negative spin, well, of course, it's not going to be well received. We're humans, right?
Exactly.
But if you communicate, hey, I'm going to bring this up because this is a hole in the process, right? Or this is not working for us because, and I don't have all the answers, but I want to be part of the solution. So, you know, one of the things that I've was taught as a young leader that I always have used as, a model when I'm leading people is you can come to me with problems anytime you need to. But
Yeah.
when you come to me with the problem, I want you to bring a solution. It doesn't have to be the solution. You
No.
might be stuck, and that's okay. But I want you to at least challenge yourself to think about what could be a potential solution as a jumping off point, and then we can brainstorm together, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question for you is a little bit about diversity. So we talked about obviously women in the workplace, and being involved in NAA. You've been involved in when Cindy created the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, it has now become an official committee. And so diversity has been something you've been a part of, right? So when you think about the organizations that you've been involved in, NAA, the companies that you've led, how have you seen inclusive leadership contribute to successful transformations?
Well, I think that a diverse company, a diverse organization, diversity brings better perspectives, brings a more well-rounded perspective and solutions than there could ever be without. We're representing all types of people within our companies. In multifamily, we are managing housing for all types of people. And if you only have one perspective, then we have gaps in our policy. We have gaps in our thought process that can't possibly be as successful as they could with more perspectives and ideas, more backgrounds, more experiences. So there's all kinds of diversity, right? There's diversity in experience. There's diversity in education. There's diversity in background. There's diversity in ethnicity. So I think when you have an organization that embraces that and sees all of those perspectives, it is only a stronger, more successful organization that can withstand the future as we move into in the future and into all the things we talked about change and resiliency. I think that it is imperative to be diverse, to create that and to meet those goals.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And kind of tying back to what you were saying about disruption and when someone brings, disruptive ideas, when I'm working with teams on, leading change and implementing change, one of the things that I encourage them to do is to really have a healthy level of conflict. Like you talked about, people need to feel safe, as you mentioned, coming to provide feedback. And I encourage people, I'm like, even if your opinion is the only one of its kind, or it's the quote unquote unpopular opinion, it still needs to be voiced. Because if you don't hear all sides or all perspectives, we're not necessarily going to make the best decision. And so you do need to bring it up. And we need to have a healthy amount of debate and conflict and discussion, meaning let's get it all on the table, out in the open, hash it out in the room, because the worst possible thing that people can do that is counterproductive is to think that thought, not bring it up in the meeting, but then the minute the meeting's over, now they're going and talking about it at the water cooler, but they never brought it to the table for discussion, right?
And that happens, right? And I think one of the things that we all have to watch out for, whether we're a leader or not, and we've heard so much about this, but it speaks to me so closely, is unconscious bias, because we're talking about diversity. And I would like to say that I don't feel like that I work with people or I work with groups of people, whether it's been volunteer or whether it's been in professionally in positions that I've held, that are specifically trying to be discriminatory. I don't think that happens, but I think that unconsciously, if I am a Southern belle from Virginia and I like gardening, when I'm talking to people, I am drawn to the people that are from the South that like gardening. right? And it's an unconscious bias. I'm not sitting there saying, okay, I'm only going to like anybody in this room that is from the South. I don't think that. But I probably am drawn to people that are more like me. And that is just an unconscious human nature. And we have to be very aware of that and make sure that we overcome that, because that prevents us from being diverse and from hearing diverse perspectives and being open to them.
Yeah, I agree. We do have to challenge ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And make
Mhm.
sure that we are including others, and that we are, giving others an opportunity to have a voice or a seat at the table. And that requires us to make conscious decisions, because you're right. Human nature, we tend to, birds of a feather flock together. We tend to
Sure.
feel more comfortable. Like if you go to a meeting and you don't know anybody, but maybe you see one person, who you're going to sit next to. Most
Right.
people are going to flock to the person that they already know, because it makes them feel more comfortable. So you really do have to challenge yourself to say, you know what? I know a lot of people here, but I'm purposely going to go sit at a different table each
Yes.
time between breakout sessions, so that I can meet new people and so that I can hear new thoughts. And we have to do the same in business. So
Well, if you
love
think
that.
about just us, Stephanie, when we met one another, we were drawn to one another because we have the same last name and it's an
Yeah.
unusual last name.
Yeah.
So we connected on that. And then we built a friendship on other things. But yeah, I mean, it's a human nature.
It is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great point. Okay. So my next question is about women in leadership. So we talked a little bit about this, but women often face additional expectations or pressures in leadership roles. Can you speak to that? Like throughout your journey, what have been some of those additional expectations or pressures that you've faced, or that you've perhaps seen other women face? And for you personally, how have you overcome that or built resilience when faced with those challenges?
I think women, you said this earlier, we are our own worst enemies. Are we set these high expectations for ourselves that are maybe unrealistic. We face difficulties juggling home and work. And at different times during your life, it may be that you have young children. It may be that you're newly married and you're juggling a new relationship. It may be, in my case right now, I have grandchildren that are coming along that I want to be with. I have a mother that I'm dealing with, and she has dementia, and I'm her caregiver on a lot of days, and I'm focused on working with her caregiver. So all of those things, everyone that we work with, woman or man, has something in their life that they're juggling, whether you know it or not. Some people are
Mhm.
vocal and they tell you, but you can rest assured that every single person is juggling some situation, especially since COVID, when we lost so many friends and had so many differences. I would say be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Tell yourself you're amazing. Tell yourself you're doing the best that you can, because you are. And it's not easy. I think another thing that um, women face is that we have to fight off the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
And that's a cliche name that we all talk about now, but it's so true. We think, I use this example a lot. Let's say there's a promotion and a man is there, and a woman is offered an opportunity, say, would you like to be promoted to this position? She's like, more than not, I'm not ready. I don't know enough. He knows more than I do. He's probably ready. He'll do a better job. I don't know if my kids, I need to be at home for my kids. I don't know how much it'll take. We think of every possible thing we can why we can't do it. Let's switch to a man. More than likely, a man's offered the job. Sure, yeah, absolutely, I'm ready. He's
Yeah.
probably no more ready than the female, but it is the way we are wired. And I would say fight that off and take chances, take opportunities. Yes, there are pressures in leadership roles, but you are ready. And if you're not ready, then take it and get ready. Learn. surround yourself with mentors, with leadership coaches like yourself, Stephanie, with mentor. We would all love to be mentors to people because we want to see people grow. So I think that, kind of giving ourselves some grace, being kind to ourselves, taking those opportunities and taking those risks, embracing them as they're not challenges, they're opportunities. And, you have to be ready and just say you can. And then, just because you say you can, it doesn't mean you're ready with every single aspect. So then you have to learn and put the time in. There's always time to a new position and a new opportunity.
I love that. And as you mentioned, all people can struggle at different times of their life with imposter syndrome. But I agree, like we mentioned earlier, that women tend to have a harder time saying no, right? Mm-hmm. And they do tend to question themselves on whether or not they're worthy. So I don't know if you've read this book, but I've told everyone about it since I saw the author speak last year, and I've gifted it to a few friends. But it's an incredible book, again, for anyone, but particularly for women facing these challenges. And the book is called Worthy, and it's written by Jamie Kern Lima. And if you buy the book online, for those of you that are listening, you can go to Amazon. You can download a free workbook. And I think the workbook's like it's over 150 pages. It's a PDF. I sent mine to the printer and had it bound and mailed to me. But I saw her speak at our International Maxwell Conference a year ago, March, and she was incredible. The book is fantastic. John Maxwell himself actually mentions her in a couple of his sessions when he talks about influence. And the book is just incredible, but it's all about, do you feel worthy? And it's a mindset thing. And again, I use the term mindset a lot, and there's a lot that goes into developing, a growth mindset. And it's not something that you say, okay, I'm going to develop a growth mindset. I'm done. Check it off the list. It's an ongoing journey, right? A development journey, but it's an incredible book.
It evolves and it changes at different points in your career and different points in your life, whether it's your personal or professional life. The mindset has to adjust.
Absolutely. So one more question for you. I can't believe it's already been almost an hour. It went by super quick. I have loved this conversation.
It's been great.
Thank you, Rhonda. And so when we initially scheduled this, our travel schedules are crazy. We were going to do it during RPM Careers Week, which is why I have the little icon still up there. But even though we celebrated RPM Careers during a designated week, which was the 14th through the 18th of April, I still want to talk about RPM Careers, since this is an industry that, we've spent our lives in, right? And our careers in. Yeah. And let me just pull this up. It's not playing nicely with me. Okay, hold on. So here's my question for you about just residential property management. So for anyone who's been listening to us either live or who's going to listen to the recording, that's either already within the multifamily real estate industry or residential property management careers, or for a new person who may potentially have interest in this industry, for existing or future leaders wanting to grow their careers, particularly women. Again, we welcome all, but particularly women. What key advice would you offer to those looking to become more successful leaders in this space?
One of the things we've mentioned a little bit earlier today is finding a mentor and a sponsor. When you speak to Alex, she'll talk a little bit about, I'm sure, about the difference in that. But a mentor is someone that, and you may have more than one mentor, but let's say you have someone that particularly could help you with a certain area that you are not as confident in. Someone that can help you as a leadership mentor, someone that can help you, like let's say you're struggling with financial statements, someone that can mentor you in that area. If you ask people to help you and be a mentor, they will. They can teach you, they can guide you. It's someone you can ask questions to. It's a little more informal. A sponsor, on the other hand, is someone that recognizes your potential. And when they're in a room and they say, who should we promote to this management position? They're going to say, I would like to suggest that we promote Stephanie because I have seen her grow. I've seen her here. They have your name and they are willing to sponsor you and put you forward and support that. And that is very important. That's probably not something that you ask for as much as something that you earn and people recognize your work. I would also say that you need to always learn. Stephanie's mentioned you've mentioned several books today, and I think that's amazing. I think that people always tell people they need to read, they need to attend things such as conferences, they need to listen to webinars, they need to listen to podcasts such as this. They need to always learn and be open to listen to all different perspectives. Just because, you have a mentor, like I said, have several mentors, listen to your colleagues, talk to people that are in other industries that are maybe in leadership roles and listen to their perspectives on leadership. And then you have to define it for yourself. You have to decide what works for me and what do I want to be. I know that I've learned as much from leaders that I don't respect, that I thought were not very good leaders, as I have from leaders who are excellent leaders. And I have tried to mold my leadership skills to be either more like people or to make sure I was not like certain situations that happen. So I think mentor and sponsors continually have a thirst for learning and reading, learning by reading and attending events, and then make sure you love what you do. Whatever you're doing, make sure that you have a passion for that. And because if you don't, you're probably never going to be 100% successful.
I couldn't agree more. John talks about that in his book, Intentional Living. Mm-hmm. And I talk about the importance of passion and purpose all the time. I leverage DISC assessments. I'm a certified DISC consultant, and I also leverage Clifton Strengths, which we've done because we did that with the NAA board one year. But how important it is to really leverage your strengths and be aligned, like you mentioned earlier, in the right role, so that you can lean into those strengths. And that's going to make you more successful. It's going to make you love what you do more. And it's going to make you want to give more, really, because you're aligned in the right place.
Yes, I agree.
Ronda, I have thoroughly enjoyed my hour with you this morning. Thank you again so much, my friend, for saying yes to dedicating your time and your wisdom to all of our listeners today. And I look forward to a future session with you, Cindy and Alex, very soon, I hope. And congratulations on the babies. I want to hear.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in June.
You will see me in June in Vegas. Cannot wait. But please keep me posted on the babies.
I will.
Can't wait to
I will
see
text you. Okay. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for tuning in to the You Deserve More podcast spotlight interview with Ronda Puryear. We will see you again this afternoon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.